So, yes, I'm a little bit nervous about riding to the airport with him on our trip to Wisconsin to go to the NFL draft. I'm concerned about it. I feel like this is one of those situations where I got to get in the car and close my eyes.
Yes, you
because I'm going to
should.
go crazy. I'm going to go crazy just watching him block traffic.
And there will be footage. Because what we have realized as we are picking Wisconsin and traveling to Wisconsin for the NFL draft, by the way, ESPN Bet, there's going to be some fun things we're going to do on where people are drafted, obviously, as we get closer, which we're going to do in a second here with Deion and some of the comments he made. But we realized, somehow we did not figure this all out, that CC and I are on the same flight, and Rob, our social and digital guy, is on the same flight. And normally I take Rob to the airport whenever we go. We always ride together. Now Rob will be in the back with his camera, filming me driving with you wanting to strangle me.
Can't wait to see this.
This will be enjoyable. No?
Not excited about it. Not thrilled.
Anyway, so Deion Sanders yesterday spoke to Skip Bayless on his show, on the Skip Bayless show, and had this to say about his son and where he could potentially be drafted. Shedeur has told me, he's talked to me intently about all the visits he's had with all the teams, so I know where his heart is. I know where he wants to go. Okay? That's interesting. If it's New York, it's New York. If it's Tennessee, if it's Cleveland, if it's still the Raiders, if it's New Orleans, if it's any of those teams that are seeking a quarterback, I'm happy with it, man, because I know what he's going to do for the organization. If it's still the Raiders, he's mentioning New Orleans, who's at number 9. Right now, Shedeur per ESPN Bet is plus 300. For the number 2 pick, he's plus 1,800 for the number 3 pick. You hear these Deion comments, you think what as a result?
The first thing I thought was he's not going to insert himself if a certain team picks Shedeur, because that was something that we had speculated on after his initial comments a while back about wanting his guys to go to a favorable situation in order for them to succeed. So this puts that to bed a little bit. And I know that you, Evan, emphasize still the Raiders, which is the piece that a lot of people took out of that. How about the fact that he led with listing New York first? And that's where Shedeur has been linked to a lot with the Giants. That was the piece that I took out of it, is why would you, of all places, have New York first and not Tennessee, who has the number 1 pick?
May I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
New York means 2 teams.
Oh, interesting.
He did not say Giants, right? He said New York.
Mm-hmm.
So if you play out what is going on right now, right? ESPN Bet has the favorite for number 2 is Abdul Carter. One Chris Canty, former Giant, had said the Giants should not take Shedeur, not because he doesn't think Shedeur is great, but because he doesn't think now is the time for the Giants to take a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, Shedeur is starting to slip. 4, New England's not going to take him.
No, and I think that's
5, Jacksonville's not going to take him.
But I think 4 is the place where the draft starts. I think that's where the draft starts. I know everybody's excited about the 3rd overall pick with the New York Giants. I know Shefty said 3 is where the draft starts yesterday, but I think it's 4. Because if I'm reading this right and we're looking at the lines on ESPN Bet, Abdul Carter is the heavy favorite at minus 300 to go number 2. Travis Hunter is the favorite to go number 3 at minus 180. Shedeur is plus 180 at number 3. So it's starting to move in Travis Hunter's favor even more in terms of going to the New York Giants 3rd overall. So what happens to Shedeur Sanders? Where's the backstop in terms of how far he falls? By saying that he's willing to play anywhere, I think Deion is drumming up the market and trying to get a team to move into that number 4 slot with New England, to do the dance with them to trade up in order to take his son, whether that team is the New York Jets or the Las Vegas Raiders or the New Orleans Saints, all quarterback-needy teams. I think that's what Deion Sanders is doing with this approach, saying that his son Shedeur is willing to play anywhere. Now, if we're connecting dots, they said all along that he would love to be with the Raiders. Tom Brady is one of his mentors. We saw the photo a couple of months ago with him and Geno Smith hanging out. It feels like at the outset of this process over a year ago that they wanted Shedeur to be with the Raiders. I still think if they had their druthers, that would be their pick. But I think Deion is trying to get his son drafted as high as he possibly can. And that number 4 slot is starting to feel like the ceiling for Shedeur Sanders in this year's draft.
If I was Deion Sanders, and I'm going to do this, if I was a father of a kid, which I am, 2 kids, but I'm saying that were eligible for the NFL draft, and that young man was a quarterback, and that young man had the opportunity to go to the Raiders and sit behind Geno Smith and work with Pete Carroll and have access to Tom Brady, that would be a dream scenario for me as a father.
That would be a dream scenario, but did you see Ashton Genty's pro day? Did you see what Ashton Genty looked like?
He plays running back.
My God, he plays running back.
He looked like a monster.
He looks like an Olympic bodybuilder.
He does.
Plays
My
running
God.
back. Not interested.
Yeah, you say he plays running back and he's not interested. He's not just any running back, though.
And coming off this season where there's been this renaissance of running backs, too. I know that you don't think that they should be drafted high, but still.
Right, but the renaissance of running backs, none of them are on the team that drafted them.
Right.
Saquon on the Eagles, Derrick Henry on the Ravens, right? I mean, those are guys that, even Joe Mixon was awesome, I thought, this year on the Texans, right?
Yeah.
There's somebody else that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. Oh, Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs, yeah.
So, none of them were on, I just don't want to draft them
But
that
maybe
high.
the value is
Fair. You may not want to draft him, but think about who Pete Carroll is as a head coach.
Right.
Wanting to play good defense, wanting to run the football. He's on the record, once he got the job as the Raiders head coach, saying that he wants to get back to running the football with that team.
Yeah,
so what better way to go with that than Ashton Genty? I mean, he's got a quarterback that he's familiar with in Geno Smith. Now he'll have the opportunity to draft his next version of Marshawn Lynch. It makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. I know it's rich for a running back, but that guy is special. So that's what the Las Vegas Raiders are weighing right now. And you have to consider if 4 ends up being the slot that we think Shedeur Sanders is going to go, are the Raiders willing to give up the draft capital that it could potentially take to move up versus one of those other teams like the New York Jets or the New Orleans Saints that are behind them in the top 10 that are looking for a quarterback of the future?
See, I think you're being very specific about a hypothetical trade, but not necessarily with the team that you mentioned the team, but I think the way you just set up the draft board, it's a New Orleans, New England trade. I don't think the Jets are trading up for a quarterback. I think they considered taking the quarterback if he slipped to them. For some reason, I don't see the Jets giving up future assets because of Aaron Glenn is probably going to want to just collect a bunch of really good players, and giving up future assets is not going to help with that.
Yeah.
New Orleans, let's play that out. New Orleans going from 9 to 4. Now, from a New England perspective, I think they would be thrilled to draft a big left tackle. The value at 4 may not be there. The value at 9 may be there for them, so they may like that. What does a team in your mind have to give up to go from 9 to 4 in this scenario of Cam Ward 1 to Tennessee, Abdul Carter 2 to Cleveland, Travis Hunter 3 to the Giants, and then as you're saying 4 is where the draft starts? New Orleans does what to get to 9 to 4?
I mean, that's on the draft value trade chart. That's 550 points to go from 9 to 4. That's the difference. So you're talking about a future first-round draft pick.
Take it. I sign up. If you give me, if I'm Elliott Wolf and Mike Vrabel in New Orleans, I have no problem betting against them. I think they're going to be right back in the same spot next year, even with Shedeur. We play half the season. Derek Carr plays half the season. That kind of thing. You give me a future first, I will move down to 9 happily. I got my quarterback already. I just paid a ton of money for my number 1 wide receiver. What I need is a big, strong, massive offensive tackle. I keep saying this guy, Josh Simmons out of Ohio State, if he's healthy, he's not going to go that high, but I just keep coming back to, at some point, he was the guy that everyone thought was going to be the guy and then gets hurt. I could justify taking him at 9, or the guy from Missouri, Armand Membu. Mm-hmm. Did I say that right?
Yeah, correct.
Wow.
Good work.
I was shocked at myself.
Well, you're getting familiar with his name because you want your team to take him.
Right, but that's the thing. Taking that a big offensive tackle at 4 is a reach because it's a 4-person draft, and an offensive tackle is not one of the 4. This makes a ton of sense. The way we have laid this out, New Orleans trading up, New England trading down, the Giants getting Travis Hunter, the Browns taking Abdul Carter is the one that doesn't make as much sense to me, because I would take Shedeur if I'm them. I would have signed Russell Wilson if I were them too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's assuming that Russell Wilson wanted to go there versus going to New York.
That's
different
another
lifestyles.
Yeah, yeah.
Different lifestyles, but also...
When you see him walk into the Giants building with Sierra, Sierra seems more like a New York City gal than a Cleveland gal.
Maybe more opportunities in her professional life in New York,
that's what I'm saying.
as opposed to Cleveland.
I mean, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in Cleveland.
That's true. Great sports town.
Cleveland is not New York City.
No.
Cleveland does rock, though.
Oh, boy. Leave those jokes to me.
Man, you are just
have a couple
full
of
of all
corny
of these
ones today.
corny jokes today.